recycling factory that you have due for tomorrow, I think it is. Today is Thursday, February 4th, so I think it's tomorrow that you have this due. So let me just back up and go to, so the Cedar Recycling Factory, okay, you're going to see what it looks like in 1 second, but here I want to make sure you guys get to see this. This is on the assignment page on Schoology. These are the FCAs, so I want you to write these FCAs down for 1, 2, 3 for the FCA for this part, for this type 3. This is a type 3. Of course, I want you to put your name. I want you to put the date, whether you do it today, tomorrow, whatever it is, and then you're going to put your FCAs obviously here, here, and here. I want you to write them out. If you're going to submit this paper, then you definitely should do that. You can just do Recycling Factory. There we go. For your title, and then you're definitely going to start off with a Dear Mr. Umbenhauer. Okay, that's an A-U-E-R, like that. And then you're going to explain. Now, what are you going to explain to Mr. Umbenhauer, and why are you talking or why are you writing to Mr. Umbenhauer? Well, here's what the recycling factory is. So it says, suppose that you are the new owner of this Cedar Recycling Factory and you are looking for business. The official from the city of Lebanon, Mr. Umbenhauer, tells you that he has a dump truck full of recycled material that must be separated, and they'll pay you $5,000 if you can do it. Now, unfortunately, this material is not like whole, like cans and bottles and stuff. It is all ground together, so there's no possible way you could separate them by hand. So it's in like a fine powder. So fortunately, Mr. Umbenhauer knows what the materials in the trucks are because they separated part of it beforehand. And what those materials are aluminum cans. That's great. Sorry, let me try that again. Aluminum cans with a density of 2.7, steel cans at 5.7, milk jugs, which would be plastic, at 0.95, and soda bottles that probably glass at 1.4. These are all grams per cubic centimeter, which is our typical density units. Okay, so he knows that there are these 4 materials in the dump truck. It's just that they're all ground together. So the first job then is, now here's what your job is to find a way to separate the 4 recycled materials. You may need to do this in several steps, so you're definitely going to do it in several steps. But what things do you have? In your factory, you have the following materials at your disposal. You have a long conveyor belt. Okay, a conveyor belt, I'm going to ask you to draw diagrams of this stuff. So a conveyor belt may look kind of like that. Okay, so you don't have to do anything fancy. You have a large tank that can be filled with water. Okay, large tank that's filled with water. Okay, doesn't matter how you draw the diagram of. Another one that's labeled concentrated sugar water. Now this one has a density of 1.5 grams per milliliter or centimeters cubed. That's what that should say. Okay, now this is the sugar water at 1.5 grams per cubic centimeter. Several powerful magnets hanging above the conveyor belts. Okay, you can include those with the conveyor belt, so it looks something like this. Okay, so like the magnets then pick up the stuff that's on top of the conveyor belt, and several nets for skimming the tanks and scooping material from the bottom. So you have nets like this that have a handle. There we go. Now that's a net. It's like a waffle or something. So what you're going to do is you're going to use these materials to separate those 4 different things. Okay? Now, first of all, you should know that you'll have to write a letter to the city official that describes your plan. So that's why all the way back up here, this is your type 3. Your letter's going to start here. You're going to double space, of course, just like we do for all type 1, type 2, and type 3. You should double space here, and then you can do one of 2 things. Let me just get back to where you are here. You should, as you describe what you're going to do, you should have diagrams of that description. Okay, you're going to have to do steps here. So you say, Dear Mr. Umbenhauer, here's how I plan to separate the 4 parts recycled material that you have in your dump truck into, like, separate them from each other using our tools. And then your step 1 will be, so you'll be dear, right, Mr. Umbenhauer, and then you describe all of that. Here's how I'm going to separate, blah, 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 and then you say step 1. Okay, step 1, you're going to use the conveyor belt. Now here's what you can do. You can draw a diagram. Let me show you what I mean by this. You can draw a diagram and then explain the step like this. Okay, or you can do all of your, like your dump truck. That's the back of the dump truck, and it has the, whatever. You have your diagram is going to look like this with a conveyor belt. So you dump the stuff onto the conveyor belt, and just as a first time hint, so you guys know what's going on, so you have the magnets here. These are the magnets, and then you have the different material on here. Now, what's the stuff that's going to get sucked up by the magnets? What is the magnets? What are they separating? Remember that you have aluminum, you have steel, you have plastic milk jugs, and you have the bottles of soda bottles. Okay, so you have aluminum, steel, jugs, and bottles, and then which one of these 4 will be sucked up by the magnet, which will be separated by the magnet. And then you're going to have like a tub of water and then of sugar water. Now, my point is that they're going to do like at least a couple of steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Using the density, you're going to have to figure out when stuff floats and when stuff sinks in the tubs. I'm not going to give you too much more of a hint than that, but I want you to describe the steps where you can separate out each of the different stuff, 2.7, 5.8, 0.95, and 1.4. So like these densities, they're important, obviously. Maybe the steel one not as much, but definitely the rest of them, the jugs and the bottles and the aluminum, like you should have the stuff to scoop off the bottom of the water and scoop off the top of the water and sugar water to be able to, because you guys know what happens if you throw something in water that is higher in density than water. And what is water? What's the density of water? If you have a bucket full of water, it has a density of about 1 gram per milliliter, or 1 gram per cubic centimeter. But notice that the sugar water, though, SW for sugar water, is 1.5. It's definitely more dense. So that makes a difference. So, okay, I'm going to let you guys work on this. Just a couple of things. Make sure you're skipping lines when you write and put your diagrams in. Make sure you put the date at the top, your FCAs are listed, you have a word count at the end, and no more than 2 sides of a paper. So if you need to use that FCA paper, don't use more than 2 of them. So you're going to have to condense. If you're a big writer or a big diagram maker, you're going to have to condense all of that. Okay, good luck. I hope you do well. Message me if you have a question.